Out of curiosity, after seeing the real Jim was watching the modern episodes of The Simpsons, I was curious how bad or good it got. Immediately I noticed something was different about these episodes, but also familiar. Partly because I used to watch these episodes with other people. And yeah, I wish I didn't. We really didn't need to know how the Loverjoys fix their sex life. I decided to sub to Disney Plus recently to check it out. I figured I'd watch other stuff on this platform. After finishing Simpsons, I began to watch Gravity Falls, which is so much better than The Simpsons and easily has some of the best storytelling in kids shows ever. Seriously, it's funny, it's really clever, it's unexpected, and despite its really cringe-worthy character designs, it is very well animated. Anyway, onto the video. The modern Simpsons. Here's what I think of it. It still sucks. This sums up how I feel about The Simpsons now.
I used to be with it, but then they changed what it was. Now what I'm with isn't it, and what's it seems weird and scary to me. It'll happen to you.
That quote is perfect to describe how I feel about the show now. I admit, I don't want to be too quick to judge, so I can get an accurate answer. I actually wanted to give The Simpsons another try, after stopping at early season 23. So I've watched from that point onwards, over 200 episodes. And here's what I've got to say. The Simpsons still sucks. I'll go through the issues I have with it, and also say what I like. Let's get over the likes, because not enough people talk about them. The animation is great. Very simple, very vibrant. The vibrancy is a very attractive thing to many cartoon lovers. The music is still pretty good minus when they try a modern spin and absolutely fail at lyrics. I'm of course only talking about instrumentals here. The lyrical music is awful. The sound effects seem fine. A bit recycled, but good enough. Now the problems. 1. No heart. I think this is probably the most obvious problem to those of you who saw and grew up around the classic Simpsons. Classic being season 1 to 9. An important point of making a drama is a viewer has to be invested in it, emotionally. And because of how modern The Simpsons is now, it doesn't have that. It forgets that people can't feel attached to a snobby millionaire who somehow makes friends with a Simpson. And it keeps using this concept, over and over again. There's so many episodes where someone in Springfield gets rich, and then loses it all because status quo. There are surprisingly some episodes where there is something canon, but it's usually a side thing. Spoiler, for example, comic book guy marries a nation lady, called Kumiko, which is canon. Lisa meets a friend who she saw on the school bus, who now appears as a background character, as does the girl's parents. And Moe's actually less suicidal than ever, after that one episode where he attempts hanging himself, but gets found, saved, and given a life, which fucks up, but he says at the end he has a reason to live. So it shows that not everything is just going back to the status quo. I have to give credit where credit's due. I think it takes heart to change. That is a universally true statement. To give an idea of what an episode story with heart looks like, look at the episode pretty early on where Ned starts up a left-handed store, and it does so badly that he has to shut it down. But because Homer feels sympathetic to Flanders after realizing Homer, has just ruined the guy's life by making a wish, Homer wants to make it up to him. Another example is the episode that unfortunately got removed because cancel culture means any allegation is proof of a bad action. The Michael Jackson episode. I think that was a great episode. Especially the end, where Bart makes it up to Lisa by singing her that really catchy happy birthday song. And it was beautiful too because of the fact it was about a brother and sister bond, and it had meaning. Also, touching on this briefly, I haven't seen evidence that Michael Jackson was a pedophile, let alone child molester. It doesn't matter anyway, the guy's dead. Offer the victims therapy. Give him a break. 2. The next issue is, no real problems. This is made blatantly true by the fact that The Simpsons has managed to go from a dysfunctional family with everyday issues, well most of the time, to a modern era non-issue, like AI taking over the world. The modern episodes either have no ideas or no jokes. That's something that became blatantly obvious when I started watching. The episode's focus is on one small thing, and that makes it so forgetful. Not to mention the double plots and retconning that happens a lot. It needs to be one big thing as a focus. Compare the episode where Lisa becomes vegetarian to the episode where Lisa becomes an insectivarian. Yes, Lisa ate insects in a modern episode. The Lisa vegetarian episode is a good example of a real problem. It shows how Lisa handles and responds to a sudden realization after interacting with a lamb. She was served lamb for dinner, but refused to touch the meat because of that connection. The connection being the food is a lamb like the one she interacted with. So that made sense. The episode explored her unwillingness to let things be because of the sacrifice that is made to bring the food. And it ends on a high note where she comes to accept that people are stupid and she has to accept that people eat meat by choice. Then take season 24, episode 5, called Pennywise Egg Eyes, which has double plots by the way. We'll ignore the Fat Tony plot. But Lisa's plot was bad. Suddenly Lisa passes out during a concert, and then it's revealed that she has an iron deficiency. She sits at the lunch table alone, and is joined by lunch lady Doris, who is eating insects. And there, she tells Lisa about insects being a good source of iron. Then lunch lady Doris invites Lisa to a club, which has insectivarians. So, Lisa joins the insectivarians club, and she begins eating insects. I'm sitting here saying, what? So Lisa is a vegetarian, and she doesn't give moral consideration to insects? Which makes this plot make no sense. We know Lisa is smarter than this. Anyway, she goes on the insectivarian diet, and even raises her own insects, farming grasshoppers in the basement. And eventually, she has a dream, where she realizes the insects are just like animals with the same organs, and all that. After the dream, she goes with Marge to a cornfield, then she sets them free and stays a vegetarian. What about her iron deficiency? I'm not one to put realism in the way, because I know the solution is iron supplements. But does the Simpsons have that? I don't know. Pennywise Egg Eyes Lisa plot is an example of how not to explore the issues of taking up a dietary choice, which admittedly Lisa the vegetarian wasn't, but they are similar in concept. This episode completely ignored it all, whereas Lisa the vegetarian explored a lot of the issues. The execution is so very wrong here in Pennywise Egg Eyes, because the realization comes at the very end. And even then, is this a real problem that people have? No. People just take supplements for their deficiencies. And the episode also makes Lisa look stupid, because she just did this for her benefit instead of the insects, which is not how you write a real problem. A problem has to be recurring for it to matter, which is a big difference. And that's really where the modern Simpsons fails at being a drama. It doesn't paint the problem all over the episode, it does it in shorts. I know what the writers are gonna say, eat my shorts. Sure. The point, if you can't get it somehow, is the modern episodes don't focus on real problems. I'll admit, there are good episodes in the modern season, but it's rare. Whereas in the classic era, pretty much every episode was meaningful and reflected a real problem. Homer struggling to find a job is different to Homer getting a new job that pays really well and finding out he doesn't enjoy it. Now being a CEO, that isn't a real problem. People can't get attached to that, and the jokes are almost non-existent too. 3. First. What do I mean by this? It's quite simple. I think whoever writes these episodes is only doing it to be first. It's a wild accusation, but I do think this is true. Take for example the episode that has Elon Musk on it, season 26, episode 12. To my knowledge, The Simpsons was the first show to have a cameo of Elon Musk. Elon's IMDb says that anyway, and this really shows that the writers have no creativity. It is one of the worst episodes, up there with Lisa Goes Gaga, season 27, episode 1. The episode where Homer and Marge date other people. If you haven't guessed the ending already, then I don't know. Say you're done now. But, guess how it ends? That's right. It was a dream, within a dream. The cheapest trick in the book. I hated this episode because it had good execution, and it looked like it was actually going to be a drama. But the writers thought it would be too far to make Homer have sex with someone who wasn't his wife. And then just said it was a dream all along. Fuck off. Anyway, the problem with the Elon Musk episode is, it was the first TV series to have Ellen cameo on it. Ellen had been in 2 movies beforehand, worth noting. But this episode was pretty bad. It had no plot. It had barely any jokes. The episode didn't even know what it was doing. To me, this just seemed like a "we did it first, us, the Simpsons" episode. And I'm sitting here saying, who the fuck cares? Then it hit me. They did this to try to be first in everything. The Simpsons seems to have this obsession with wanting to be with it, without realizing being with it can have its consequences, especially if you don't execute it right. The Michael Jackson episode is the perfect example of a celebrity cameo. Same with the monorail. But this? Lisa Goes Gaga, and the Musk Who Fell to Earth? This is garbage. The stories went nowhere, their input was just pointless, and it just wasn't entertaining. The only thing I'll give credit to is the Musk episode, where he was referenced for a few episodes after, because his creativity bled into Springfield, and the aftermath of it all is left. But man, come on. The Simpsons even parodied Stranger Things twice, and even had an entire episodes about Bart spoiling the Simpsons equivalent of the Avengers, which is called The Vindicators. These episodes just feel like a statement, rather than a story. It's there to say I've been here, I've done this. To their credit, there were funny bits in these episodes, but not amazing. It leads on to the last point that makes The Simpsons bad. And do keep in mind, it's subjective. 4. The jokes can be alright. A big difference you'll see between the jokes from classic Simpsons to now is they've evolved. Not in the funniness, but the type of humor. There is an obsession with suicide jokes for some reason, surprisingly not involving Mo. But the majority of jokes are random and are not really funny. They sometimes try these jokes that do not make sense at all or even warrant a laugh. They do this in the animation, which sometimes works. Or it can be the plot or something. The jokes can include dark comedy or just general stupid things. But there's never any laugh out loud parts. And if you're expecting 3 minutes of jokes, you won't get that in modern Simpsons. There's also the problem of execution and how long a joke goes on for. I remember this one part of an episode where Marge was going clothes shopping and she met those twin girls, Kerry and Sherry. I forget their name. But they did this weird illusion thing, which went on way longer than it should have. The joke lasted 30 seconds. It really didn't need to. I also have this suspicion that some stories are designed to be joking rather than drama, rather than a balance of the two like classic Simpsons did. As I said, or at least I think I said, they just write these plots, and if they seem like they can be made into a story, it will, and they just throw that out. And it ends up sucking. So, is modern Simpsons still funny? Not all the time. I like the dad joke humor the most. Conclusion. Overall, I think the modern Simpsons is pretty bad. I have a list of my reactions and reviews below, probably in a link if you're watching this as a video. The problems are blatantly obvious, and the show is being milked for a profit, just because. The Treehouse of Horrors are alright. And I'll be honest, 28 was amazing, probably the best one yet, which is really hard to pull off. Not just for the good jokes, but the parodies, and even the third story, which I genuinely thought was creepy as fuck. As someone who's desensitized to gore, that was one concept I never considered, and it actually is creepy. Still, I think the show needs to end, because it just isn't entertaining. It isn't interesting or funny anymore. I don't plan on watching any more of it, for a long time at least. It is boring now. It had its time. It just needs to end. Or at least start writing properly. Take your time with it. Have multiple writers, including boomers, and Voiler. You can probably save The Simpsons.